Hello, it's Ella Barnard
Hey!
here. Hi, everybody. Hi, Justine. Okay, I'm introducing Justine. She is a creative catalyst and an awesome coach. And you're here in the Creative Ladies Facebook group, which is a group for creative ladies who are wanting to do something, empower themselves and do something awesome in the world. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, Justine. So
That's
happy
where
to have you
we're
here.
dancing too.
Yeah, I'm dancing because I'm just really happy to have you here, okay? I'll put some music in here maybe.
Ooh, that would be fun. Thank
No,
you so
no,
much for
I know.
having me. I'm so excited to be here. I love your Creative Ladies group so much. It's just like every time I come in, I feel like I want to give everybody a group hug and at the same time like jump up and down because there's always so much inspiring conversation and information getting shared and great interviews with people. It's just like can I just meet everybody and hang out and like we can break out our mugs and have some tea or coffee or hot
Yeah.
chocolate and just have a good time.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers to the
Thank you.
creative.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm okay. Okay. So, ready to get started. So, basically I want people to know a little bit. So, where are you right now? Like, where are you right now? Oh, Christian says cheers. Cheers.
Hi, Christian.
Okay, so right now, because I didn't do a very good introduction of you because I forgot to put that into my agenda last night. What are you doing right now? And I know, but why don't you tell me?
From a work perspective, is that what
Work and life, you
work
know.
and life, all the good things.
Yes.
Well, currently I'm sitting here in my apartment in Lisbon. I've been living in Lisbon, Portugal since last June. Although I'm only going to be here a little while longer, maybe 6 more weeks, because my boyfriend and I are headed to Playa del Carmen, Mexico next. And yes, the beach. Oh!
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm so excited
Awesome.
about that. Yeah, and I'm helping. I love the phrase expansion catalyst because it's totally what I do. So I don't know if I sent that to you or you pulled that
I
out
found
and
it. I found it.
I'm
I was
like,
like, ooh.
it's totally, well, I think it's really accurate because essentially the work that I do is the individuals I coach, and generally they're business owners or people that are in the process of becoming business owners. I help them expand the things that they want in their life and contract the ones that they don't. And contract, I don't mean like getting it like a virus, but like shrinking it so that it's no no longer there anymore. Just to make sure there wasn't any confusion. Um, so
Yeah.
so I work with folks one-on-one and really help them get clear on what they want to create. And if they're feeling a bit blocked creatively, really working to like release the flows so that the creativity actually moves and helps them move in the direction that they want to go and that they envision. And so that's really, really fun because to see people like doing more of what they love so that it brings them to life and makes them feel more vibrant and vital and creative and full of fulfillment and joy. Like I want to see more people like that. So
Yeah.
that's why I do the
Yeah.
work I do.
I love that you have creativity. Like the creative is more than just like somebody who's like painting on a canvas. Like creativity is the like life juice.
Yes.
You know, for whatever it is, for business, for, you know, art, for just, you know, day-to-day living. I love that so much. So how did you what's your passion about? Like how did you get into this? Like why? What's your story?
I think well, that's a great question. And first, I just want to say creativity is the life juice. Like, I'm so glad you said that. And I 157% agree with that because I think, and I can talk about this later, but for me and my own understanding of creativity, like I had to expand my own definition of what it meant to be creative. And so to have that encompass way more than like writing or painting or like, I think for a long time I associated creativity with like being able to create visual things in a beautiful way, whether that be with paint or with clay or with marble or, you know, just kind of the visual creative side of arts. And I was just never that good at any of that. And so for a long time, I didn't even believe I was creative. And
me too.
Yeah.
Me too. And I'm like, no, I'm starting a group.
Totally. Well, that's like the life
redefining
you.
I'm redefining creative because I am creative and women are creative. Like we're creative ladies. Like it's natural, biologically natural. And anything that you create is creative. Anyways, yes.
Hey,
I agree with you 157%.
Yay.
Okay.
So back to your original question about how I got started. You know, I think I've always had a natural inclination towards helping people have a better life. And I think that stems from a lot of ways. I think like as a child, I was very serious. And like I also experienced a lot of like trauma and anxiety from some family stuff that happened where my sister almost died. And, you know, my parents were going through rough patches here and there. And so like as a kid, I felt really responsible. And at some point, I think I learned that like being joyful could help balance out all of the stuff that felt so icky. And it's like, even if there's stuff going on that doesn't feel great or that is scary or traumatic or any of that, it's like, there's still so much joy to be found. And so I think it was like just this experience of finding the light and the dark at the same time. And also realizing that no matter what's going on, like there's more of the light to be found. And that's not about diminishing the challenges that happen in life, but just knowing that those challenges don't have to be all consuming.
I'm like I'm like, oh, I have like a very similar story. So I really understand like that path and then wanting to help other people, you know, who are maybe who are in the midst of a challenge or who have been stuck by previous challenges and like are not moving or creating, you know. I totally get that and I love that. So what do you find are some of the common challenges that you run into as you help people? Like what are some common challenges to creating?
Oh, time is probably the biggest one. I don't have enough time, but like a lot of times time might not really be the issue. Like time is an easy thing to point our fingers at and be like, well, there's not enough of it. But you know, we all get the same 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 364, 65, whatever, with a leap year, days a year.
Yeah, right.
And so time actually might be an issue. And it's usually coupled with something else. So I find that timing is a big challenge. Also priorities, because oftentimes our kind of perceived obligations or responsibilities end up kind of leading the forefront as to what gets our attention and what we place our energy into. And so often when there's creativity that feels stuck or like it's not moving, then what needs to be looked at is, well, are we really prioritizing our creativity?
Yeah.
And then money can be a challenge too, or just like if you have a creative dream, it can sometimes feel really overwhelming to figure out, okay, like I have this incredible vision, and then where do I even start with that vision? Like, what's the first step? Because often it feels like, well, we need to do 50 things or we need to do 100 things and they all need to happen now. No, actually they needed to happen yesterday.
Yeah. I have a huge, that sounds very familiar because I definitely have a huge overwhelm. Like it's a giant project, and I have a perfectionist problem. And so I'm like, if I can't do all of it perfect right away, I'm also very impatient. Yeah. Then I have that in the past, I've had a hard time starting, and I've really had to practice just like, okay, I'm just doing what's right in front of me, and the other stuff will come. Like, but what's right, and like, I'm like, people are like, but what about this? And I'm like, that's 3 weeks away. I'm not thinking about that yet. I am looking at what I have to do today and tomorrow, because it's on the right path. I've really had to practice that. So I wonder, but I wanted to go back to the time thing. What do you find? Do you have, because I'm sure there are a lot of people in this group who are like, but I don't have time. So do you have like a tip or something for people about how to find time?
Yeah,
and it's probably going to be like deeper or more, like whatever that tip is.
yeah, it's probably going to be a little bit of a multidimensional tip, because
yeah.
When you asked me that question, like my brain went out in like 5 different directions. So maybe I can pull back a few of those areas, because I feel like depending on who you are and what your scenario is currently around your own relationship with time and why certain things aren't getting done related to your creativity, there can be a lot of reasons for it. So what comes up for me is like a really important thing to do is sit down and say, like, what thing do I want to be doing that I'm not prioritizing? And let's just use art for an example. Maybe it is art that you want to be doing more of that you're not currently doing. So it's like, well, how much time would I ideally be working on art? And a lot of times, like, we can place a lot of pressure on ourselves. Like, oh, I want to be, painting 2 hours a day. And it's hard to just go from 0 to 2 hours a day like that. And so what's a really great approach is to say, well, maybe I'm going to brainstorm what I want to paint for 15 minutes. And, tomorrow I'm going to take 15 minutes and pull out all my supplies and make sure that, my brushes are clean and my canvases are prepped, and, whatever else goes into that preparatory process. And then after that, it's like, maybe on the third day, I'm just going to take one color and I'm going to like put a splash of color on the canvas, just to like open that door a little bit. Because we're not trying to like kick the doors open and have everything be flowing at the same time. What we're trying to do is like ease that flow into a place where like it's not going to get scared off. You're not going to like kick the doors open and then have them shut because it's like, oh my gosh, I'm doing too much all at once. But really like easing into it. So that could be one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is to look at all the things that you're currently doing and maybe making a little inventory. Like, how much time are you spending scrolling Instagram and Facebook is a really great place to start, because I don't know about you, Ella, but I've found it to be so easy. Like, I'm much more mindful about this nowadays, but some days, like, I would grab my phone, I don't have Facebook installed, but I like will have it open in Safari or whatever. So I open it up and then I'm like, scroll. And then I look at the clock and I'm like, 15 minutes, poof. Like, what else could have existed in that 15 minutes where
too much time, Christian? What does that mean? what else could have been scrolling in that 15 minutes is right, like getting your art supplies ready. I love that so much. Because it reminds me of exercise, actually, because like when you haven't been exercising, like perhaps like because it's been winter for 7 months, and easing yourself into it because it's something that you want to do, is actually something that feels really, really, really good once you start doing it. But creativity, like it's the juice, but it's also it's very vulnerable. It's a very vulnerable space when you're creating. And I don't think people, when you're imagining how much time that you're going to spend creating, like uh, you're like, I want to spend 2 hours creating. It's going from 0 to 2 hours creating in terms of the practice of making yourself vulnerable, I think is more than we imagine it to be when we aren't doing anything. We're like, all I want to do is sit there for 2 hours and create. I think there's more of a, a practice of being like, I'm going to be vulnerable for these 2 hours while I'm creating this thing from my heart. That's definitely, it's wonderful. But I love that you just ease people into it. And then at the end of the week, when they've done 15 minutes each day, they've done 2 hours of creativity. They found the time for it and they're feeling really good. I really love that.
Yeah, I think so much of it, like when we've been in a place of not doing the thing that we know our hearts want to do so much, like we're starting to create this internal rift because like on one side, we're like, yes, 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 yes. Like this is what my heart's calling for. This is what I desire. And then on the other half, you've got the part that's like, oh my gosh, this is scary. Like I don't have time to do it. There may seem like a lot of obligations or responsibilities, which can, be great masks for excuses why we're not doing it. Mm-hmm. But I really like to look at, like, instead of calling ourselves out on the excuses necessarily, like just noticing that those things, those reasons why we're not doing it are simply protective mechanisms. And when we're cutting ourselves off in that way, we're denying that part of ourselves that is so true. And that creates that rift. And so when we start to go to a place where we're ready to actually take action on this like song in our heart, what happens is like we've broken a lot of trust with ourselves because we've heard this drumbeat of like, make this art, write this book, create this podcast, start this Facebook group, whatever that internal drumbeat is. And all of the days we haven't listened to it start to kind of pile up in our own kind of emotional energy field. And so when we want to start to create that, we have to be really gentle with ourselves. So to me, that means taking it slowly and creating a lot of small wins for ourselves and not overwhelming ourselves too quickly. But like, what does it look like to stick a toe in the water today? Okay, what does it look like to stick 2 toes in the water tomorrow? And start to build that trust over time so that when we go to take the action or we go to be in that space of vulnerability, like we're going to actually follow through on it. We're going to feel good about it and begin to build that positive momentum that comes from like what happens when we actually listen to that little inner voice and heed that call that is so fulfilling.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I was actually talking about the building trust with yourself topic. I think I literally said those same words with somebody else a few days ago. I was like, you have to build trust with yourself because when you break that trust, it was like when you have it. Like I remember there was a time in my life where I wasn't taking care of my creative song. I wasn't taking care of myself. And I was talking to my sister and she was like, you have to build trust. You have to build trust with yourself. And I was like, and I was in a pretty bad place. I was like in a pretty bad place. And so I was like, okay, what's like one tiny thing that I can do to start building trust with myself that I know I can do? Like, and this is probably beyond what most people in this group would need, but I was like, okay, I really like having my toenails painted. So I promise myself that I will, do this thing. And then I did it. And that was like my sticking my toe in the water. Ha ha ha, my toe. Toenails. Yeah. But that was my thing. That was my thing to start building trust with myself. And now, like, I like how you say it, but it did. I had broken so much trust with myself that I had to start with something small like that. And now I think that's really beautiful about building trust with yourself and the creative and vulnerability. I just think that's really beautiful. And I don't think it's something people think about very often, but I love, like that you haven't been taking care of your, we have this urge to create. I think it's part of the gift of being alive.
Yeah.
And that we
Yes.
have something that is a gift to the world, that it's not our duty, but it's our honor. Like it's like I'm honored to be able to offer it. But it's freaking scary and freaking vulnerable. And so
I think it's also our joy.
yes. Yeah. Yes, and our joy. And our best self that's hiding in here that we get to give as a gift to ourselves and the world. Yeah, but it's
absolutely.
scary. It's freaking scary, but it's so awesome.
It's so scary. I actually have a story about self-trust.
Yes. Yes.
So summer of 2010, so almost 7 years ago, I had quit a job. I was working at an environmental nonprofit doing work with businesses to basically pass environmental policy to make sure that we weren't putting so many, pollutants and stuff into the atmosphere. And there was a big bill on the table, and it fell through at the 11th hour. And I think I was probably 23 or 24 at the time. And I was devastated. I had seen so much collaboration and hard work put in by so many people, and it just felt like the worst thing ever. So I had gotten a scholarship to get my master's degree, which I didn't end up doing, but that's another story for another time. And so with that in mind, I was like, well, if I'm going to go to school, I'm going to quit this job. I just need to take some space and time for healing. I think part of it was knowing that the world was actually a good place, even though the things that we want to happen that would be good for the world don't always happen the way we envision them happening. So I took the summer off. I put a road bike and a mountain bike on my roof rack of my car. I filled my car with hula hoops. I had a bunch of tiny stuffed animals that I put out my back window. I called them my rear window guard. They were the little stuffed animal, dinosaurs and Totoros that were looking after my back. They were so cute. And I went across the country for 3.5 months. And I still have the piece of paper that I scrawled the budget on. I had $1,600 for 3.5 months, and half of that was set aside for gas. And really my plan was let me just travel around and go to national parks and just see the world, see the country. So I get to the West Coast, and I'm at this healer's home in Ashland, Oregon. And I ended up doing a healing session with this woman, and I'm crying in her beautiful studio. She's got beautiful lamb's wools and crystals and feathers. It's just beautiful. And I'm crying. I'm I just want to be able to trust myself. It's I felt the choices that I had made and had been working corporate, and I really felt this trust that I used to have had just been completely demolished. And so it was the one thing I wanted to know was how do I build trust with myself? And I can say 7 years later, it's been a journey, and that self-trust is now back and stronger than ever. And it really, really holds me through all of the ups and downs. But just simply asking the question and being in a space of how could I build that trust to one small follow through action at a time is what I learned. And whatever that action is, it's going to be different. For you, it was painting your toes. For me, a big part of it was not overextending myself, because I have this, I just want to experience life. So I like saying yes to a lot of things, but I had to learn that I could only say yes to a certain amount of things. Otherwise, over promising my time at my own detriment was a way of breaking that trust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And that's bring us back to, how do you find time? How do you find time for your creative self? I'm certain that there are a lot of women that overextend, overpromise their time and then don't have time for themselves and their creativity. I'm certain that that's a very, very common thing. So that's, I don't know, just bringing it back around to that finding time and having trust with yourself. And because we're kindred spirits or something. I feel like I'm like Anna Green Gables and Diane. Anyways, somebody. Yeah, because I had a similar thing where I was overcommitting myself, and I was like, I'm not doing the people that I'm overcommitting to. I'm not doing them a favor because I'm not able to be with them 100%. Because I'm like, oh, sorry, like I'm not 100% for anybody because because I'm like, I don't have enough energy to be 100% for all the people I've committed to. And I just decided, I was like, I only want to do 100% of whatever I commit to. And that means saying no to some things, because I'm not going to do something 50%. Like, I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm only 50% on the phone with you and I'm 50% doing this, like doing my Facebook statuses or whatever. Like, if I'm on the phone with you, I'm on the phone with you. If I'm, but it's saying no to some of those things that are not, that are not maybe feeding you, in order to make space and time for your creative gift. I think that's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really the way to do it. I think, for me, committing to no longer multitasking was a huge step, because if I'm saying no to multitasking, then I have to be really realistic about how many minutes are in a day that I can actually be working, and how many minutes a day I need for myself to take care of my own health and well-being, sleeping and feeding myself well, all of that stuff. It's like, once you factor in all of those things, it's like, okay, now I know I have this many hours in a day, and then this goes to my health, and then this goes to work, and then, then all of a sudden it's how much time I might have to say yes to something else becomes very clear, because it's at that point very specific, finite amount of time.
Yeah, right? I didn't used to be a scheduler, and now I'm like, I have a schedule. I'm like, I make time for my spontaneous self. I make time for spontaneous. I'm like, Saturday will be spontaneous, but it's like on the schedule. It's not just like, because I'm like, I have the time to create these things. I wanted to ask, do you have like a really inspiring story of maybe you or one of your clients to inspire people about creativity and creating?
Yeah, and I'm going to bring the time piece into it, because there's a lot of, actually there's two stories. There's two stories. One of them has to do more with time, and one of them has to do more with creativity. So the story about time, a client of mine that I worked with recently had a whole new business in her that she wanted to get started on. And she's a mom of two. She's got part-time jobs going on. Like, when she and I had her intake call, like, we realized that she basically had 3, maybe 4 hours a week to create this new business.
Wow.
Not very much time.
No.
Like, from a mental, like, linear time thinking perspective. And what she did in that 3 to 4 hours was amazing. Within a month, she already had exactly what her offering was, and had people asking her if they could essentially be part of her beta testing round for her new service. And so essentially in 4 weeks, she went from like unlived concept in her brain to like hosting actual focus groups to offering this service to people. Yeah. Wow. Amazing. And so what was so incredible about that is, because she only knew she had that much time a week to put into things, it became very clear what was worth her time and what wasn't worth her time, and what would actually move the business forward and what wouldn't. So we were relentless in terms of identifying what was a yes for her in those 3 to 4 hours and what was an absolute no way for her. And so because we were able to really prioritize and identify what would move the needle and like actually move her forward, she made incredible progress in over that span of 4 weeks. Holy moly. So proud of her. Wow.
That is really inspiring. I love that so much. I love that.
And do we have time for one more story, or do we need to wrap it up?
One more story.
Okay, one more story. So this one is a little bit more of a creative bent. So one of my clients is an incredible illustration artist. And but she was spending so much of her time on clients that she was actually pulling all-nighters and was like, had no time for her art, which is essentially where she wants to take her career. So what we did is we got really specific that creating space for that art was really like the best way for her to invest in her future and what she ultimately wanted to create. So she was able to rework agreements with clients, set new boundaries. And because she actually created space for that art before, it felt like something she was really neglecting. And that was like that internal rift piece. And so when she started doing art again, like she would create a little space for it and a little bit more space for it. And she said before it felt like doing her art felt like a chore, probably because of that guilt factor. And she said now it feels like dessert. And she's actually doing a 100-day sketching project. So every day she's doing one sketch and she's creating new portfolio pieces for a conference that's coming up. And she's got some incredible opportunities on the horizon. So it's been amazing to see her transformation on how she's really gotten to a place where she's allowed space to do the thing that makes her heart sing.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I love that. Those stories are inspiring because I think a lot of us have a hard time, you know, we have all these excuses for why what's important to us can't happen. And yet you're telling us these stories about how it's happening and then with amazing results. Like on the other side of making that time for yourself is not only like your heart singing, but also like the life that you actually want to have. So like your dream life is also over there. It's very exciting. It's awesome. So, so you are Justine now, because we're going to come to a close now. I'm coming to a close. So I have your email here so people can reach you at at Justine. So hold on. Justine at JustineSparks.com. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I said at a couple of times. I was like at Justine. Oh, okay. And then your website is JustineSparks.com. And it's a beautiful website that has lots of inspiring stuff. If you enjoyed this conversation, you should definitely go check it out. Woo! And then, woo! And then if you're seeing this anywhere, you know, not in the Creative Ladies Facebook group, come join the group.
It's amazing. It's amazing. You'll be so happy you're here.
Yeah, Creative Ladies Coalition. It's on Facebook, and it's just right now, it's just conversations and encouragement and inspiration for being your creative self. That's like all it is for Creative Ladies. And I just want to create a space for us to be awesome and empowering ourselves and others and supporting creativity. Yeah. World. Yeah. So thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. We will see you later.
Ella, it was such a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you.